Good morning.
Welcome to the Piedmont Unitarian Universalist Church. Piedmont UU sits on the traditional lands of the Kiowa, Catawba, and Sugaree peoples, and we honor them. My name is Robin Mara, and I'll be worship assistant for our service leader, Cosette Blackmer, this morning. We are a flourishing, vibrant, and radically welcoming congregation which promotes diversity, inclusion, and social justice. We provide a safe haven for creative intellectual growth, spiritual development, and a deep sense of community for all who join us. We hope our liberal religious values will challenge you to join us as a community that lives boldly and acts justly. To all our visitors and members, we're very glad you're here, in person or with us online, and we hope to see you again. Your presence is a gift to us. Our announcements for this Sunday include, we're going to be having our Pledge Campaign Kickoff Picnic here next Sunday at 11:30. And if you haven't signed up to attend yet, please let Elaine know before you leave the service today if you're attending. And thank you if you've already RSVP'd. And actually, Harry's over here too. You can let Harry know as well. Saturday. Oh, did I say Sunday? Yeah. Thank you. We all work together to make sure the message gets sent. And if you're watching online, you can contact Harry to sign up, and he's at Hendercaster at, I'm doing this from memory, gmail.com, and also at generosity at puc.org, maybe, if that's easier to spell.
Is it your order of service?
That part is not. So Harry's in the order service. So, and our CUUPs group will be hosting a Fall Equinox event 1 week from today. That's Sunday at 2 o'clock, and everyone's welcome to join us. For other important information about our vibrant community, please see your order of service, or if you're on our email list, please check your monthly newsletter and weekly announcements. Whatever brought you to this place at this hour, we welcome you. May you find something you need, and may you leave richer in spirit than when you arrived.
Our chalice lighting words this morning are from the UUA Worship Web and were written by Francis Cozier. May we light this chalice this morning to remind us of the power and beauty of balance and contrast. It is darkness that can make the flame of a single candle so powerful, and light that deepens the shadows in turn. A chalice flame is the meeting point of the union of that refuge, safety, and incredible beauty of dark and warmth, the assurance of joy and light. May this act of lighting our chalice this morning remind us that we are stronger together. In all the complexities and disagreements of relationship, because we are different, and because we are one. Please join me in singing the words to lighting our chalice, the symbol of our faith. They are printed in your order of service. Thank you, Anne. For our call to worship this morning, I'll invite you to stand in a moment and join me in reading number 446, To the Four Directions. This reading is used with permission by Anne Goodwin, daughter of Joan. Please stand. It's number 446 in the back of the hymnal. Spirit of the East, spirit of air of morning and springtime, be with us as the sun rises in times of beginning, times of planting. Inspire us with fresh breath and of courage as we go forth into new adventures. Spirit of the South, spirit of fire of noontime and summer, be with us through the heat of the day and help us to be ever growing. Warm us with strength and energy that waits us. Spirit of the West, spirit of water, of evening and autumn, be with us as the sun sets and help us to enjoy the rich harvest. Flow through us with a cooling, healing quietness and bring us peace. Spirit of the North, spirit of earth, of nighttime and winter, be with us in the darkness, in the time of gestation. As we celebrate the spiraling journey of our lives. Thank you. Now please remain standing and join us for our opening hymn, number 21, For the Beauty of the Earth. Please be seated. We now have a story for all ages. For any young people or young at heart people who want to join me in front, we'll have our story time. Can you hear me now? Our story for today is Persephone and the Pomegranate Seeds. This is based on an excerpt from Celebrating the Great Mother by Kate Johnson and Maura D. Shaw. I have the book up here if anybody's interested in looking at this later. Now, I have a question for everyone. Are you familiar with pomegranates?
Yep.
Yeah, good. That's a lot of yeses. Well, if you're not familiar with pomegranates, they are ruby red fruits that have many, many tiny seeds inside that are juicy and sweet. But if you bite down on the little seeds inside, they're bitter. This has long been a symbol of, yes, thank you. It's long been a symbol of life and rebirth. Now, once upon a time, there was a lovely young girl named Persephone, whose daughter was Demeter, the goddess of all growing things. Demeter and her daughter lived in a world where it was always summertime. Sounds good to me. Green things were blooming and the sun was warm and sweet. But one day, while Persephone was out with her friends gathering flowers, she heard a rumble and felt a trembling beneath her feet. The ground split open and out arose Hades, god of the underworld, driving a dark chariot. He snatched Persephone up and drove her back with him to the deep underground. It closed up again, and there was nothing to be seen of Persephone. None of her friends saw what had happened, and no one knew where she was. And although she looked everywhere, her mother Demeter could not find Persephone. She became distraught. She searched for days and weeks and months. She became so depressed that the world grew cold and dark. Nothing would grow, and people began to become hungry. Meanwhile, in the underworld, Persephone soon realized that Hades really wasn't as scary as he first seemed. He had been so lonely in the underworld, and he told her so, and how great it would be for her to stay with him. But Persephone really didn't know what to do. She missed her mother and the bright world in the above ground. But the dark had magical power, and her new status as queen of the underworld, her love of Hades, gave her reasons to want to stay. She felt she had important work to do deep in the earth. Now, Persephone knew that if she ate or drank anything in the underworld, she would have to remain there forever. So she didn't, though Hades had begged and pleaded with her to do so. Above ground, Demeter had finally learned where her daughter was. She was furious, demanding justice, insisting that Persephone would be returned to her. Hearing this, Hades sadly hitched his dark horses to his chariot and prepared to take Persephone back. Before they did, he offered her one last thing, a pomegranate, ripe and blood red. Looking him straight in the eye, Persephone took just 6 seeds and ate them. Back they went above ground, up through the great crack in the earth. In joyous reunion, Persephone threw herself at her mother. Arm in arm, the earth grew green again, rich with flowers and grain and fruit. The sun shone warmly, and all things rejoiced. But because of the 6 pomegranate seeds that Persephone had eaten, it was decreed that for 6 months, every year, she must return to the underworld with Hades and return to her duties as queen of the underworld. She would return above ground every year at the spring equinox and wear the crown of apple blossoms, and the world would bloom again, bringing spring. That's our story today. Thank you. And now we have our sacred time of sharing. This is a time of ritual and sacred sharing, a time of sharing our joys and sorrows, concerns and milestones. First this week, we light a candle for Michelle M., who had a recent fall. For all those who have been impacted by flooding in Libya. To everyone affected by the earthquake in Morocco. The ongoing the ongoing struggle for rights in Iran, and all areas of violence around the world, especially of Africa and the war in Ukraine. At this time, you are welcome to come up and fill out a prayer card, drop a stone in our shared water, or light a candle of joy or concern. We also light a few more candles for those things held in our hearts that remain unspoken, and for those of us joining online or elsewhere to honor what is in their hearts as well.
Today we're going to do something a little different for our meditation time. Cosette's going to lead us in a moving meditation. And after our moving meditation, it's going to be a quiet moving meditation, then we'll have a moment of silence where we'll just sit back down after we move, and we'll sit back down, and then we'll have our musical meditation with Anne that we will sing with. So to start, okay. Cosette's first going to demonstrate the movements, and then we're all invited to join in. And Cosette's going to be mirroring your movement. So when she moves to the left, her left, you'll be moving to your right. So we're just going to mirror her. And so first, stand in a relaxed position.
Not yet. You don't have to stand
Yeah, we're going to watch her first so we have some familiarity. Yeah. So first we're going to stand in a relaxed position and hold our hands, palms facing the floor, loosely at your waist. And this is your center. And you'll take a few deep breaths. And you'll begin the movement by taking a step to your right, because that's left. With each step, your hand will follow, reaching out, palm up. And at the same time, look toward that direction. You don't need to strain or stretch. These are really loose, easy movements. Then you'll bring your foot, hand, and head back to center. Rest both hands again at your waist. Then repeat the movement, stepping left and back, and then back. Next, you'll step forward with your right foot and back. Then you'll step back with your left foot and then return to center. Then with both hands, reach up, then down and back to center. And then we're going to repeat the movement starting with your left foot. And now, please stand as you're willing or able. And you might want to move a little bit to give your neighbors a little more room. And it's okay to shorten the movements if that's easier for you. And if you remain seated, just move as you wish to. Our wisdom reading this morning is from Edward Hayes. He's a prolific contemporary author, artist, and storyteller. It's a prayer printed in Earth Prayers from Around the World, edited by Elizabeth Roberts and Elias Amadon. O sacred season of autumn, be my teacher, for I wish to learn the virtue of contentment. As I gaze upon your full-colored beauty, I sense all about you an at-homeness with your amber riches. You are the season of retirement, of full barns and harvested fields. The cycle of growth has ceased, and the busy work of giving life is now completed. I sense in you no regrets. You've lived a full life. I live in a society that is ever restless, always eager for more mountains to climb, seeking happiness through more and more possessions. As a child of my culture, I'm seldom truly at peace with what I have. Teach me to take stock of what I have given and received. May I know that it's enough, that my striving can cease in the abundance of God's grace. May I know the contentment that allows the totality of my energies to come full flower. May I know that, like you, I am rich beyond measure. As you, O autumn, take pleasure in your great bounty, let me also take delight in the abundance of the simple things in life which are the true source of joy. With the golden glow of peaceful contentment, may I truly appreciate this autumn day.
Many of my friends emphatically state that fall is their favorite time of year. And really, what's not to like? The weather has become cooler, if not rainy, and less humid, except during rainy days. But the trees turn brilliant colors, and pumpkin spice latte is once again available. Now, maybe the availability of pumpkin spice lattes is your marker that autumn has arrived. This year, the autumn equinox occurs this Saturday, the 23rd. The actual day can vary a day or two from year to year, depending astronomically. The autumn equinox begins in the northern hemisphere when the sun is at the highest zenith across the central equator. At this time, we can observe equal hours of daylight and nighttime. When I was a child, I believed that the summer ended on the first day of school. Our culture tends to mark Labor Day weekend as the end of summer. And meteorologically, autumn starts on the first day of September. Meteorologists and climatologists break the seasons down into groupings of 3 months based on annual temperature cycle as well as our calendar. But one reason I now embrace the astronomical marker as the first day of autumn is that I suffer with seasonal affective disorder. I become depressed and lethargic in the wintertime. And maybe it's just a little mind trick, but understanding that the first day of fall doesn't begin until September 23rd lifts my spirits. And it's like I get 3 more weeks of summer. I feel most of us barely think about the equinox days. There are no major holidays associated with the fall equinox. We may be more aware of the spring equinox because of our Easter celebration, which occurs the first Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox. The placement of that holiday has a lot to do with ancient lunar calendars and traditions. In my faith tradition, the fall equinox is honored as a harvest celebration. Earth-centered spiritualists or pagans may call it Maybone or second harvest. The first harvest celebration happened on August 1st and is called Lammas and sometimes Loaf Mass Day. The final harvest will occur on October 31st, a day I call Samhain. Earth-centered spiritualists celebrate the fall equinox as a time of thanksgiving. We share gratitude for the harvest as well as all the gifts that bless our lives. Another theme that is often embraced during the equinox is balance, but we'll talk more about that later. Today, we may sometimes feel far removed from nature and the natural world, but the experience of the cycles of life in agrarian society are part of our collective unconscious. All of our ancestors would have honored the changing seasons and the rise and fall of abundance that occurred because of them. For myself, recognizing and tapping into the wealth of tradition, I can work towards a better understanding of myself and the world around me. There are many lessons to be derived by paying attention to the natural world. For millennia, festivals and rituals surrounding the harvest and the changing seasons were honored. In ancient Greece, a celebration for Dionysus, god of wine, occurred. China and the Far East honor a harvest moon festival, and many celebrations are still observed in alliance with lunar calendars. For instance, there are Jewish traditions honoring Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. In Great Britain, a feast for the Archangel Michael has been honored since medieval times. On Michaelmas, Families and friends might dress a goose and feast together. Bannock, a sort of cake, were made to honor the archangel. So beyond our backyard herb gardens, we can still participate in some small form of these holiday and harvest rituals. We can participate in county fairs that celebrate local craftsmanship, the harvest, and local livestock. Now, I grew up in the suburbs of San Diego and didn't see a whole lot of livestock, but my parents would take me to the San Diego County Fair, where beyond the yummy food and a really great rodeo show, we would look at all the different animals, from rabbits all the way down to cattle. And even though I was raised in suburbia, my elementary school often took us to field trips on dairy farms and other agricultural settings so that we could understand better where our food came from. Other ways that we can celebrate the fall include craft fairs, apple and wine festivals, and music events. In some areas in the United States, the foliage is turning bright shades of yellow, orange, and red, and that can bring tourism as well as commerce. My grandparents would drive up the Pacific coast in each fall to enjoy the spectacular colors of Victoria, Canada. It's a very long drive, but there really are very few deciduous trees in coastal San Diego. Now, let us take a moment to delve a little bit into the story for all ages that I shared this morning. According to many resources, including the Women's Encyclopedia of Myths and Mysteries by Barbara G. Walker, it is thought that Persephone, the queen of the underworld, is much older than our Homeric hymns. The idea of Persephone, the Iron Queen, or the dreaded queen of the underworld, is considered older than the Eleusinian mysteries practiced by the ancient Mycenaeans. These rites would occur over several days during the harvest season. They were shrouded in mystery and secrecy. Very little is known about exactly what was practiced, except that these rites centered around the story of Persephone's descent into the underworld and Demeter's subsequent search for her daughter. Over time, we do see changes in Demeter's story. What I shared was a modern version of the story and her trip to Persephone. In classic renditions, Persephone is abducted and raped by Hades. But in many contemporary versions, she travels willingly to the underworld and she falls in love with Hades. She takes Hades as her husband by choice, and she eats the pomegranate seeds, a little bit like in our story, not because of immense hunger, but because of choice. Stories and myths often change over time. There may be changes in cultural values or understanding of certain truths that influence the way the stories are told. Homer's Odyssey and Iliad, which included the story of Persephone, were written during a specific political and cultural climate for a particular audience and for an explicit purpose. One example of a well-known story changing over time is our Thanksgiving story. I was taught as a child how the Pilgrims in Plymouth, Massachusetts, and the native peoples, the Wampanoag, shared a meal and helped one another. Now I know that that story is largely myth and inaccurate. And even the actual date that we celebrate Thanksgiving as a national holiday has changed over the decades. It is thought that the Pilgrims did bring autumnal celebration traditions with them when they came to the New World, honoring feast days in October. Our modern Thanksgiving tradition began in 1863, when President Lincoln began an annual observance of Thanksgiving on the last Thursday, in November. That's what I get for looking away from my script. It was Franklin Delano Roosevelt who moved the official date back a week, specifically to boost the economy. As I mentioned, another important aspect of the equinox is that we observe balance in daylight hours and nighttime hours. This is an excellent time for us to honor what is balanced in our life, to echo balanced days and nights. Or at least maybe we could focus a little bit more on where we might find more balance. The moving meditation that I shared earlier is an exercise in balance. The meditation was taught to me with instructions that it was meant to be shared. We began our movements with both the left and the right. I was told that the right represents the masculine, moving forward and action. Subsequently, the left represents the feminine, thought, contemplation, stillness. If you were in a situation where you needed to act, you would start the meditation with your right hand. But if the best action was to stop and give the situation some thought, start the meditation with your left. We only practiced a small portion of the whole meditation. The complete meditation involves repeating all of those movements, both left and right, while facing each of the cardinal directions, east, south, west, and north, and then repeating them all again in reverse, moving counterclockwise. So how do we achieve more balance in our daily lives? For me, there always seems to be another task that needs to be done and not enough energy or time to do them all. When I find myself doing too much, I will stop and take a short walk, play with one of my cats, or simply sit quietly for a few minutes. The late Paul J. Meyer, who founded the Success Motivation Institute in 1960, created a concept called the Wheel of Life. This pie chart illustrates the important elements of our lives. I have an example of that chart here, and of course, you're all too far away to actually see it, but you get the idea. The wheel is equally divided into sections, and there's a space to rate the amount of time and energy dedicated to each. There are different variations on this wheel, but generally the idea is the same. This may be a versatile tool to assess where we might need to find more balance in our lives. If you're curious about this, I'll leave it up here for you to view later. One important section of the pie chart on the wheel is that of spirituality. Nice to see they actually include that. If I were to fill out the pie chart, I think that it would show I heavily lean on spirituality. But during the pandemic, I had let that aspect wane and spent a greater time on basic needs and family. But recently, I have renewed my commitment to my spiritual path. Last month, I traveled to Maryland and spent a week glamping with old friends to celebrate our various pagan traditions. We celebrated with ritual, drumming, dancing, had a really good time. I also have renewed energy in creating space to celebrate here by participating and leading events with our CUUPs chapter. For those of you who aren't familiar with CUUPs, it stands for Covenant of Unitarian Universalist Pagans. CUUPs was established in the 1980s. Their mission is to collaborate with the UU 6 sources and 7 principles with particular focus on the 6th source, spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. CUUPs functions as a networking community of pagans and other nature-based spiritualities. As Robin said during the announcements, next Sunday, our CUUPs chapter is hosting a Fall Equinox ritual here at the University Gathering campus. The gathering will honor the Fall Equinox as we celebrate something called World Pagan Pride Day. That occurs every year on September 23rd. The Pagan Pride Project encourages groups of pagans all over the nation to organize a Pagan Pride Day, celebrating in their local areas during September or October to coincide with World Pagan Pride Day. There is a Carolina Pagan Fest occurring in South Carolina later this month for anyone who might be interested. Our goal here is to create CUUPs events that folks who are interested in earth-centered spirituality will feel comfortable participating in and begin networking with like-minded individuals. It is our sincere hope to build, or harvest if you will, more fellowship and a stronger UU community. Besides observances and rituals, our CUUPs chapter hosts a monthly book club. And if you are interested in the book club, participating in gatherings, or just curious about earth-centered spirituality, you can read more about these topics on the National CUUPs website, www.cuups.org. One more plug. For anybody interested in strengthening our local chapter here, we are currently expanding our membership and encourage you to join National CUUPs and choose PUUC CUUPs as your local chapter. By spending more time practicing my path, I am harvesting my spiritual development. The seeds had been planted years ago. The roots are strong and the tree is big. The fruit is ripe and sweet. Take a moment now to consider what you are harvesting in your lives. What seeds have you planted, nurtured, and cultivated? Are they tangible, intangible? Are you seeing the labors of your work coming to fruition? May you manifest and harvest the highest good for all concerned. I would like to close today with a quote by Ella Wheeler Wilcox, an American author and poet. With every deed, you are sowing a seed, though the harvest you may not ever see. Thank you for the honor and privilege of sharing with you this morning. Blessed be.
you, Anne. Now, let there be an offering to sustain and strengthen this place, which is sacred to so many of us, a community of memory and of hope, for we are now the keepers of the dream. This month's shared plate offering will be going to, half of it will be going to North Carolina Environmental Justice Network. North Carolina Environmental Justice Network is a grassroots, people of color-led coalition of community organizations and their supporters who work with low-income communities and people of color on issues of climate, environmental, racial, and social injustice. We ask that you place your gift in the baskets as they make their way around the room, or you can wait and drop it into one of the baskets as you leave our space. And you're always welcome to give online at puuc.org or by texting PUUC at the number 73256. Today's offering will now gratefully be received.
As always, we thank you for the gifts contained here within these baskets and all the gifts that you bring to this beloved community. We thank you most of all for the gift of your presence, whether in person or joining us virtually. Now please stand in body, mind, or spirit and join us in singing hymn number 73, Chant for the Seasons.
Sweet
Before we extinguish our chalice, I offer thanks for the many volunteers that helped to make our worship service possible. We ask that before you leave today, please place your hymnals back on the cart near the piano. Let's take a moment to give thanks, either in our hearts or with words, for the things in life in which we are thankful for today.
I'm grateful for the mouse that my cat brought me. I've been looking for a mouse for a new story.
Grateful for a mouse that her cat brought her because she's looking for a mouse for a new story.
I am grateful for being surprised at a tune that was recently played at church.
Gratitude for the surprise of a familiar tune played this morning.
The turning of the leaves.
The turning of the leaves.
Cooler weather.
Cooler weather. Amen.
Chance to go backpacking with my sons this coming weekend after a year of training and strengthening and losing weight.
Wow, a chance to go backpacking with sons after a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yep, I've lost my place. Well, I think these and many things we are grateful for today. Our closing blessing this morning is adapted prayer by Rabbi Rami M. Shapiro, printed in Earth Prayers from around the world. My friends, let us give thanks for wonder. Let us give thanks for the wonder of life that infuses all things now and forever. Blessed is the source of life, the fountain of being, the wellspring of goodness, the compassion and kindness from which we draw to make for justice and peace. From the creative power of life we derive food and harvest. From the bounty of the earth and the yields of the heavens, we are sustained and are able to sustain others. All life is holy, sacred, worthy of respect and dignity. Let us give thanks for the power of heart and sense of the holy in the midst of the simple. Our chalice extinguishing words were found on the UUA website and were written by Brian Kiley. The chalice is now extinguished, but its light lives on in our minds and hearts and souls for each one of you. Carry the flame with you as you leave this place and share it with those you love, and most especially with those you have yet to meet. That's it, right?